In every corner of America, beneath the noise of busy streets and the isolation of forgotten alleys, there are dogs whose stories never make the news, dogs who enter shelters with shaking bodies, broken trust, and eyes dimmed by memories they cannot explain. But inside those same eyes resides something unbreakable, an instinct, a courage, a spark that refuses to die. Some of these dogs, despite everything they have endured, rise to become the kind of heroes no one expects. This is the story of three such rescue dogs, ordinary animals with extraordinary hearts, who outsmarted the odds in ways that changed lives forever. Riley's story began on a storm-worn morning in coastal Mississippi. The sky was a bruised gray sheet, the kind that promised no mercy. Rain fell in unbroken walls, hammering rooftops, drowning roads, and sweeping entire neighborhoods under swirling muddy water. Entire families fled into the rising flood, searching for high ground as the winds howled like something alive. By noon, rescue teams were overwhelmed. Their radios crackled nonstop, reports of trapped children, abandoned cars, collapsing houses, and people clinging to floating debris. Every second counted, but in the middle of this chaos, an unusual call came through. The voice on the radio sounded confused, shaken, not sure if he was even reporting something real. We've got a dog out here. Looks like a retriever. He's leading people through the water. I don't even know how to explain it. At first, the rescue unit brushed it off. They had no time for strange stories. But then another call came in, and another. People were claiming a golden dog had shown them which direction to walk, barking sharply whenever they stepped near dangerous currents or weak ground. It was impossible, they thought. Dogs don't map out disaster zones. They don't predict collapsing Earth, but Riley did. When the team finally reached the flooded highway, they saw him, soaked, trembling, coated in mud, but standing tall like a beacon. The water was waist, deep around him, swirling violently, carrying branches and broken scraps of homes. Riley turned his head, locked eyes with the rescuers, then barked once, sharp and urgent, before sprinting toward a submerged neighborhood. Rescuers followed, struggling to move as fast as the dog cutting through the water ahead of them. And then they saw it, people huddled on top of a half-collapsed shed, moments away from sliding into a current strong enough to drag a truck off the road. The only solid path to them was invisible beneath the brown floodwater, but Riley knew it. He ran forward, stopped, looked back at the rescuers, and barked again. Every few steps he paused, checking if they were following. When one rescuer drifted slightly off the safe path, Riley erupted in frantic barks, splashing toward him and pushing him back with his body. It wasn't random, it wasn't luck. He knew where it was safe. Together, they made it to the stranded family of four, a mother, father, and two children, terrified and clinging to each other beneath a broken roof. Riley swam to the kids first, nudging them, calming them, licking their hands despite the storm pounding around them. The rescuers secured the family and started back, but the father froze. "What about the others?" "Others?" the rescuers asked. "There were people screaming down the street. We heard them an hour ago before the water rose." Riley was already gone. He swam into the flooded street with fierce determination. The team followed again, and what they discovered over the next half hour became one of the most unbelievable rescue efforts of the disaster. Riley led them to two elderly neighbors clinging to a floating door. He guided them to a man trapped inside a truck being slowly swallowed by water. Then he took them to a collapsed porch where a teenage girl had been stuck, unable to move her injured leg. By the end of the day, 7 lives were saved, all because Riley refused to leave anyone behind. But Riley wasn't the only dog who outsmarted danger. Far away in Phoenix, another unlikely hero watched the world from behind a supermarket dumpster. Nova, a slender shepherd mix with deep brown eyes, lived behind a supermarket. She'd been there for months, sleeping behind crates, drinking from a leaky pipe, and watching humans from a distance. Employees said she never begged for food, never barked, never approached anyone. She was just a shadow, quiet, cautious, unseen. That changed on a warm summer night. A woman named Erin walked into the parking lot after her shift ended, her purse over her shoulder, her mind on the long day she had survived. But a man had been waiting. He sprinted toward her, grabbed her purse, and shoved her hard enough to send her stumbling to the ground. He ran toward the exit of the parking lot, but Nova was already there. She didn't growl, she didn't attack. She just stood in the thief's path, legs braced, eyes locked on him. The man froze, startled, then turned and ran the other way. Nova moved instantly, cutting across the parking lot like lightning, reaching the next exit before he could. The thief cursed, panicking. He dashed toward the side alley. Nova was there too. What Aaron and the security cameras witnessed was something that would later stun the police. Nova wasn't guessing his moves. She was reading him, anticipating each direction seconds before he took it. When the man tried to circle around cars, Nova outmaneuvered him with perfect precision. When he changed direction abruptly, she pivoted faster. Each time he tried to dodge past her, she blocked him without ever touching him. Finally, cornered between a wall and a dumpster, the thief dropped the purse. He raised his hands and shouted at the dog to quit staring. Nova didn't move. She simply held her ground, keeping him from escaping. When police arrived, the thief tried to claim the dog was trained, that someone had set him up, that this couldn't be real. But Nova was just a stray who had been invisible for months, until the moment she chose to be seen. Aaron approached her cautiously, tears in her eyes. Nova sniffed her hand, hesitated, and then leaned into her touch. For the first time in her abandoned life, Nova let someone hold her, but the final hero of this story lived far from storms and crime. In a quiet Ohio neighborhood, a tiny rescue pup named Milo was preparing to fight a battle of his own. He had been adopted just 2 weeks earlier from an overcrowded shelter. Milo was small, barely 12 pounds, with soft gray fur, floppy ears, and eyes that always looked worried. He was scared of everything: thunder, doors closing, even the sound of running water. His new family adored him but wondered if he would ever feel safe. Then one night, disaster struck. It started with a faint smell, something burning deep inside the house. But the smoke alarms didn't go off, the wiring was damaged, and the fire started quietly in the basement, creeping up the wooden stairs like a silent predator. Milo was the first to sense it. He lifted his head from the couch, sniffed the air, and froze. His heart pounded. He paced in circles, whining, unsure what to do. He ran to the youngest child's room first. She was fast asleep, clutching a stuffed animal. Milo scratched at her blanket, pulling it with his teeth. When she didn't wake, he jumped onto the bed and tugged harder. She blinked awake, confused, until she felt the heat. Real, growing, dangerous. Milo barked, something he rarely did, then ran out of the room, stopping and looking back repeatedly until she followed. Next, he bolted to the parents' bedroom. Smoke was beginning to seep through the floor vents. He scratched at the door, whining loudly, pacing so fast he nearly tripped over his own paws. When the parents opened the door, they saw the haze in the hallway. Within minutes, fire engulfed the stairs, blocking the exit. The family grabbed Milo and ran to the window, climbing onto the roof of the porch. Flames roared behind them, lighting the night with terrifying brightness. Firefighters arrived just in time to help them down, but they knew the truth. Without Milo's frantic, clever warning, this night could have ended in tragedy. 3 dogs, 3 different worlds, 3 heroic instincts that surfaced when it mattered most. Riley, who mapped a flooded city better than trained rescuers. Nova, who outsmarted a criminal with strategic precision. Milo, who sensed a silent threat and woke a sleeping family from disaster. None of them began as heroes. They began as strays, abandoned, misunderstood, ignored. But heroism isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose, when fear is high, when danger is real, when no one expects anything from you. Rescue dogs don't just survive their pasts. Sometimes they rise above them, and sometimes they outsmart the odds in ways that remind us why animals are among the greatest heroes walking this earth.